Yo, what up, everybody? This is Status Quo, your favorite podcast for gaming trends, past and present, where we only cover games, straight games, no filler. I am your host, Mars Vindicator, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Queasy Crayfish.
That is right.
.com,
.net, and everything else. So today we're going to have another wonderful, beautiful, extravagant, great episode, as usual. So we got a couple of interesting topics today. First of all, we're going to have a great debate, everybody's favorite new segment, and we're going to be debating as to which one console that we think could be erased from history without there having much of an effect on us. So this will be interesting. And hint, I don't think any of us is going to choose the Wii U. It's too easy. Okay. After that, we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch redesign. Should be interesting. Should be cool. I have my predictions on to what the new Switch will be like, as I'm sure Queasy Crayfish does as well. After that, we're going to be talking about the game market and talking about if it is saturated. I, Mars Vindicator, kind of think that it is. I think there's just a bit too much going on out there. But we'll see what Queasy has to say. And maybe he'll change my mind. And last but not least, here at Status Quo, as you guys all know, we're not too huge into collecting. We're not too huge into playing every game. But we are very big on having video game memories and having video game experience. So we just want to share with you guys some of our most exciting or funny or ridiculous video game memories, because since Queasy Crayfish and I have been gaming for our entire lives, and that is all we do because we're sedentary bastards, we have a lot of those memories. So without further ado, we'll get started with the flake news.
Cue the music.
There it is. I love this song. So, our first flake news topic is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves came to Netflix on October 1st.
Oh, great. It sounds like something you'd see on GameSpot nowadays.
Exactly. Just kidding. That's not a flake news topic.
Better Call Saul, new season review.
Right, yeah, they already have a review for Venom.
Oh, yeah. At GameSpot, yeah.
Good Lord.
Because Venom was in a game once, so,
comic books, video games, it's all the same thing, right?
It's all nerds. It's all nerds,
let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons instead of Yakuza. Just kidding, though. F that. Actually, the first fake news topic is Mega Man and Monster Hunter are both getting live action movies.
Well, that's not game news. That's movie news.
Actually, it is. Touché.
I think that sounds stupid. I mean, I guess it sounds stupid. It should be Monster Hunter. Did it need to have a movie? They're just like, oh, it sold well, let's make a movie. And Mega Man, same with the Sonic movie. You're going to make a Sonic movie now? The ship has sailed. Mega Man this is so old. And then why live action?
Exactly. Yeah.
Are they gonna have that terrible beer gut Mega Man from the the old box art and stuff?
Yes, covers. The Mega Man is from Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's stupid. Monster Hunter I kind of explained just because I think that'll be a Western-made movie that probably will sell well, or in Japan for obvious reasons. But Mega Man and Sonic, it's not 1992 anymore.
Sonic starring Jim Carrey,
right?
And the guy from Parks and Rec.
It's outrageous. Not gonna see it. Actually, I'm not. All right. The next topic is, which I've actually already said, but we're gonna cover it a bit more later. But we're getting a new Switch next year. Is it flake news?
Yes.
I can see that, but maybe not. But we'll cover that more later. The next flake news topic is you can now link all your Fortnite accounts together since there's crossplay.
Yep, did it. I did it. 0 times 0 is 0, so I did it.
He linked all those accounts.
Oh yeah.
Hope they let me link my SNK Pocket Color Neo Geo Fortnite account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fortnite, my Alexa Fortnite account. And
I got my Wonder
all that
stuff.
Yeah. You know, Virtual Boy.
Yeah. You know.
Car Marty.
Hey. Now that'll be the day. You know.
I need some FM Towns support with my Fortnite.
Start a petition. Get Fortnite on the. No, just kidding. So, last but not least. Actually, it's not last. Second to last. Inferno is coming to Soul Calibur 6.
Inferno. That's cool. He's not. Is he? I don't think he's the last boss. Is he? Though it's that other guy, as well or whatever.
As well.
Also,
it's that other guy as well.
I'm gonna call him also. Yeah, that as well. Or maybe he's like you think he's the last boss, but it's really Inferno. I think Inferno should be like, you know, Bison level of like bad, you know, last guy. He should be always the last guy, and just Inferno.
I can see that. Yeah, they do need a good consistent boss in that series. No more Darth Vader. And this is the so you know, before we were recording and we were talking, I had this big heart attack because I had found out something, and Quizzy still doesn't know what it is, and that is that GameStop now sells retro PS2 games.
They sell retro PS2 games?
Well, I guess they sell PS2 games. I guess they're already retro.
Are they throwing away the boxes?
Oh yeah, of course. They've actually done a much better job with that this time. Like, because before, when they would have like, you know, like the items on the website, the product images, some would have cases and some wouldn't. All the PS2 games have no case, so they're upfront about it. So you can go to GameStop now and buy your copy of Def Jam 5 from New York for $40.
It's just like, what? I don't understand the reasoning behind throwing away the cases.
Because they have to save space.
Yeah, but like, that's just ridiculous.
No, it's definitely ridiculous. And I am totally taken aback by the fact that they're doing PS2, because for so long they had skipped that console, and seeing as how big PS2 was, that was obviously on purpose. So I just kind of wonder what's their reasoning for doing it now. And it, you know, the fact that it's weeks after, just a few weeks after we found out about the PlayStation Classic, just does not surprise me. So,
well, we all know PS2 is one of the worst consoles ever released.
Well,
so
that's going to be my pick for the one that it should be erased, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but yeah, I don't know. It's strange. And, you know, they definitely have a limited selection. You know, you're not going to be able to go on there and get every PS2 game.
Like, what do they have? Just,
you know, like the big stuff. I mean, they have like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. They have like Suikoden. They have it wasn't one. Yeah, like Def Jam 5 from New York. I think they have like more of like the rarer ones. I wouldn't even doubt if they didn't have like Sly Cooper or like God of War. I don't know if it's true or not, but I wouldn't doubt it.
Putting the mom and pop used game stores out of business.
Mom and pop put their sales out of business already by being used game stores, because it's like, you know, nobody's gonna come here and buy Sly Cooper, man. It's over.
Or you know, like A Few Good Men on DVD, you know, or something.
It's to the point now that like those stores, like they don't have superhero sections, they have like Spider-Man sections, because there's just that many DVDs. You know, like,
yeah, but you choose from 800 copies of Spider-Man on DVD.
Yeah, or 800 copies of Last Samurai, or 800 copies of, you know.
Hey, that's a good movie though.
I mean, you don't know, it's not a bad. I think Spider-Man's good, but there's just a million of them on DVD. You know, well, no, not even. There's a billion of them.
Well, listen, I need to pad out my HD DVD collection, so I need those stores to continue to exist.
Nobody sells HD DVDs. Good luck. Better get on eBay.
Yeah, I need those.
Goodwill.
Need those.
Transformers.
It's far superior to Blu-ray and.
Remember that? Well, we got Transformers. Don't give a shit.
Hey.
Don't disrespect.
Don't disrespect the HD DVD cult. Okay.
Hope you have fun with your separate drive, 360 fanboys. Well, so our first topic, the great debate. Our one system that we think should, not necessarily should, but could be erased from history and not affecting anyone. So, Quizzy, would you like me to go first, or Quizzy,
yes.
would you like to? Oh, you want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'll just come flat out and say it. It's the original Xbox.
Oh, damn.
Now, what's funny about that is, like, 2 seconds before we had that conversation, we had both agreed that the Xbox was the best 6th-gen system besides the PS2, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why I think the Xbox, it would be okay if the Xbox doesn't exist, it's kind of like saying the Warriors don't need KD. Meaning that even without him, more than likely, the Warriors could still win a number of championships, okay? Because they're, debatable, but, overall they're a good team. So I have, especially recently, I've kind of been seeing the Xbox as, an upgraded Dreamcast, okay? And for more reasons than one. I mean, it was very obvious because of the fact that Microsoft Windows was written on the front of the Dreamcast, that Microsoft had something to do with the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast had online play. The Dreamcast had a very extremely similar controller to the Xbox. It was all there. The Xbox is basically just a better Dreamcast with some, that's capable of playing PS2 multi-platform games and has Halo. Okay. Not to take anything away from the Xbox. I think that the Xbox is good, right? But I think that it's just interesting that it exists in the same generation as that Dreamcast, especially given the fact that those two companies worked hand in hand. It also should be worth saying that, a lot of the bigger Xbox exclusives and just Xbox games, period, were Sega games that, no doubt would have been on the Dreamcast had it been a better system. So I kind of feel that if Microsoft and Sega had just worked together to make a better Dreamcast, or even a Dreamcast Slim or whatever you want to call it during that generation, I think we would have been perfectly fine without having a Dreamcast. I guess you could argue where this would change the course of history forever, which actually I didn't really think about until now, is that Sega could have been successful, right? And so then that would have most definitely changed the course of history. But I guess where I was going with that is that, Microsoft would have gotten a great taste for, how to make game systems. And most of the things that they worked on with the Xbox, they could have just worked on with the Dreamcast, and then still had a majority of that experience to then go forth and make the 360. Because I feel either way, the Dreamcast or the Xbox would have had much better online than the PS2 still. And then that way, when the 360 came out, that still would have been its big thing. And, the evolution from the Xbox to, honestly, to tell you the truth, I think the Dreamcast controller to the Xbox controller is like to the 360 controller is like a more clear evolution than the Xbox controller to the 360 controller, right? Like, I mean, they look the same, So I think that, if they had just kind of stayed working together with some better partnerships, then, that would have still made Microsoft would have still kind of been able to be who they are today. There's just the possibility that Sega would have been a little bit more popular. I guess one of the other big things to consider that would not have happened is that Sega would not have gone multi-platform, right? But I do think that a majority of the games that still came out on the PS2 would have no doubt just come out on the PS2, because even in the beginning, the Dreamcast only really had support from Capcom, and they were only giving them like arcade games, right? Like the fighting games, like the shmups. So it wasn't like they were gonna get Resident Evils. It wasn't like that system would have gotten the Onimusha series. It wasn't like that system would have gotten the Devil May Cry series. That system still would not have gotten the Grand Theft Autos at first. They wouldn't have got Metal Gear Solid. They wouldn't have got Tekken. They wouldn't have got Soul Calibur, et cetera, right? All that stuff still would have been on the PS2. So I think the PS2 still would have no doubt been the biggest system. And yeah, it could have easily been in a situation where, like, once the profits were divided and once the contract was all panned out, Xbox and Microsoft made more money with the Dreamcast 2 or whatever you want to call it. So they still would have continued and Sega still would have died. And we'd be in the same place. We just probably wouldn't have gotten Sonic Adventure DX. You know what I'm saying? And I don't necessarily think we would have needed that. Sega would have still probably gone multi-platform later on. So you'd still have Sonic and Smash or whatever. You probably wouldn't have gotten as much stuff as you got on the GameCube. The system would have been cursed by getting games such as Shadow the Hedgehog as exclusives or Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg as exclusives, but hey,
we have another name for that game.
Right. So that's that. So I mean, we would have had
let me get this straight. So you're saying
I'm ready.
You're saying not only should the Xbox have not existed, but you think okay, so Dreamcast, are you also revising the Dreamcast then? Or are you saying that there should have just been a second Dreamcast that was superior or something?
Oh, no, I think it would have, like, if Microsoft, basically, it would have gotten a revision. It would have gotten a during the generation revision, which honestly, that would have been a very interesting thing. But actually, what's funny is that's not even really that far-fetched because we had the 32X and the Sega CD, right? So Sega had been, Sega had done, like, mid-generation, jumps before. It's kind of hard to really truly classify the 32X because, it has the graphics of the next generation, right? But it's technically in the previous one. So yeah, like a dream, because yeah, like if you were to take the Dreamcast and make it look as good as an Xbox, that would be quite the jump, right? It's not the same as the jump between the Xbox and the 360, but it's a jump that Sega would have no doubt made because they had a history of making ridiculous jumps, right? So I do think, yeah, like that in itself sounds absurd, but we have to remember that Sega is absurd. So
I just don't see, because my pick was going to be Dreamcast. Because, I mean, first of all, we really don't know the extent to which Microsoft was involved with them. I feel like, we know they were, but I don't think we know the depth of it. And we don't know every detail of, how closely they were really working with them. So I feel like everything that was good about the Xbox had nothing to do with Sega. And I can't imagine Sega, even being able to listen to Microsoft or even being able to accept their counsel on these kind of things. I mean, Microsoft would just have to straight up buy Sega and just say, we're calling the shots now. Because Sega was, by the time Dreamcast came out, Sega was so stupid. And I think the Dreamcast is a perfect example of that. I mean, this console is a piece of garbage, if you ask me. I mean, it's one that I just, I get excited to hook up the Sega Saturn sometimes and be like, oh, I'm going to play these weird games that I don't know anything about, even though I've owned them for years, But, when I hook up the Dreamcast, it's just like, what am I going to play? Shenmue, Sonic Adventure? Like, that's it. I'm not going to play Crazy Taxi. I'm not going to play these types of games. And that's what their focus was, just clearly oh, we're going to make arcade games with very little replay value. I mean, just the absurdity of like you've said before, they took two buttons off the controller, it's the only controller that only has one stick in a D-pad in that generation. And it's just they were just terrible. And I mean, of course, no DVD support. It doesn't even support widescreen. So, I mean, that console was just a complete relic of the previous generation. It was just like them trying to beat the PlayStation and the 64. We're going to come out with something that can, overpower the PlayStation 1 and the Nintendo 64. Because that's all Sega was ever interested in doing. They're like, oh, what's, Super Nintendo's out. Well, we're going to top it with the Sega Saturn, I mean, it's just, I don't think Sega. I think Sega is just an awful company, and I'm ready to cut them off right there. I'm ready to cut them off at Dreamcast. They should have been done after the Sega Saturn. They just wasted everyone's time and money with the Dreamcast. So just get it out of here.
I guess so. I guess my only things about where I disagree with that is that I think that the Dreamcast itself, like, you know, if you just take the Dreamcast to like it, just the Dreamcast, I do agree that it is a pretty bad console overall, and you know, I'll be right there with you in saying that it is, you know, severely overrated with, you know, a lot of things that people say about it. But I just think that there's mainly two big things that came out of the Dreamcast that I think would actually change the gaming landscape more than if the Xbox didn't exist and just kind of went hand in hand with the Dreamcast. Because, I mean, truth be told, I think the only thing that we could like really be surprised about that would never exist, and actually that's not even really true, I don't think, is like it would just be Halo. Like if the Xbox never came out, I think the biggest thing that we would be missing from that is Halo, because a majority of the other kind of big games on that system, either, you know, you got like, I guess what, like, you know, like like the Elder Scrolls is on there, right? Not on PS2, but that just would have been on, you know, it would have just been on PC. And I think the same case for Halo. And I also feel that the Dreamcast Slim, or whatever you want to call it, just would have had Halo on it, right? And they would have had that whole LAN thing going on, you know, and they really started the online, right? So I think that put Halo on that system, the future is basically set, because Microsoft still gets to work on all their online stuff and take that to the 360. I think the things that were missing from the Dreamcast, though, and you know, we can argue about how big these things are, but I think first of all, we would have never gotten 2K. Okay. Now, I'm not going to say that 2K is the biggest and best game in the world, but you know, 2K was started because at that point in time, every console maker except for Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and Sega all had their own sports games, right? And 2K was Sega's sports game. And then after the whole shift and everything, you know, eventually that went another way, and now we have the 2K we have today, but it still started there. And then second of all, the Dreamcast is essential in the existence of Sonic the Hedgehog. If the Dreamcast did not exist, Sonic the Hedgehog would probably be no more popular than Rayman at this point. You know, or you know,
which he is.
Well, no, I mean, he's in Smash, and I mean, I think, yes, I do think that Sonic could have been bigger. We talked all the time about how, you know, at one point in time, Sonic was, you know, the bee's knees. You know, he was in parades. He had his own SpaghettiOs and whatnot, shoes, but that all just kind of died down, right? And then he didn't even get a game on the Saturn. So if Sonic had never come back to have a game on the Dreamcast, he would have just been dead and gone forever. And yeah, I don't even think his games on Dreamcast were that good, right? We know that, but it's the fact that they existed and it kind of kept him alive. So I think that without the Dreamcast, we'd be missing both 2K and Sonic, amongst other things. I mean, obviously Shenmue, you know, but as much as we love Shenmue, we know that that's not, you know, the biggest thing in the world.
Right. I would say, I mean, yeah, 2K being gone, I think would be, that's a good point. However, I mean, Microsoft did have on the original Xbox, they did have their own sports games. There was Amped, the Amped series, and Rally Sport Challenge 2, and there may have been others as well.
Yeah, NFL Fever, Inside Drive.
Right. And yeah, I mean, those were, at least with Rally Sport and Amped, I mean, those were highly rated games. I mean, you know, it's like Forza basically is, you know, a sporting type game. So, I mean, they had a pretty good sports lineup, I think. It's just not as celebrated as, you know, 2K or anything like that. But I mean, like, I think the biggest thing out of that would be, yeah, like EA would just have the NBA license and we just have nothing but, you know, NBA Live now. But, I think you're kind of understating the Xbox's impact. I mean, you know, we could make all kinds of theories about, you know, maybe the online would have been great on the Dreamcast or something like that. But I mean, really, like, just online of today is based off of Xbox Live. I mean, Xbox Live invented like online console gaming, basically.
No,
I mean,
it didn't.
Oh yeah, it did. The way they do it.
Did it. But I'm crediting that to Microsoft, and that's kind of the point.
It did not. No. It may have done it first, but it did not invent matchmaking. It did not invent all that kind of stuff the way Xbox does it.
But it came first, and that came from Microsoft. That's kind of what I'm saying. See, I get the point I was making. That's kind of why I made the point that, like, I wasn't saying like take Jordan off of the Bulls, right? We all know. We actually saw it, right? Like, the Bulls could not win without Jordan, right? But the Warriors could still win without KD. That's why I made that point. So we know that KD is, easily top 3 right now, right? And I'm comparing the Xbox to KD, but it's just the fact that he's on the Warriors, right? So yeah, I don't think Xbox. I'm not understanding the Xbox's impact on online.
Xbox is Jordan to Sega. Sega could not have survived without Xbox. I mean, or without Microsoft.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and that's the point I'm making. What I'm saying is like, we would have had that same stuff on the Dreamcast. Because Microsoft would have done it. Microsoft would have done it.
So you say.
So I know.
No,
because that network adapter, the broadband network adapter was coming. The broadband network adapter was definitely
but
coming.
who's calling the shots? It's still Sega. It's still okay. If they, I could buy that if they bought Sega. But
and that may have well happened. Like that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that
I'm looking at it. If you took one console or the other and just erased them from existence, which one would have a bigger impact? And I think certainly it would have a bigger impact to erase the Xbox from existence than it would to really erase the Dreamcast from existence.
If you were to just flat out take one away, I would agree with that. But that's absurd because, yeah, of course. And, and I think that because what I was trying to include in mind was more so that, like, butterfly effect, right? Like, yes, we know that if we just look at those two systems and we just took away the Dreamcast, there'd be maybe less of an effect from what we can see. But I was trying to, like, make sense of that, right? Because there's probably some other things with the Dreamcast, right? As well as there could be other things with the Xbox too. But I think that the other things with the Xbox are more covered by the fact that, like, a lot of those games would have just gone to PC, or a lot of those games still would have had a console to actually be on, right? Whereas, like, if the Dreamcast never existed, then there just would flat out be no 2K, or there just would flat out be no Sonic Adventure, unless Microsoft and Sega still had that partnership and they just put those games on the Xbox, which is possible.
if you were to erase Xbox from existence, my guess would be that, I mean, because they were working on that for years. It's not like they just suddenly, in 2000, decided to start working on it or something like that. I mean, it was a long project. So I would assume that if Xbox never came out, that they wouldn't even have any interest in getting into the games market. And so they wouldn't even be partnering with Sega to begin with. And so it would just, the whole thing would be gone. And Sega would just be on their own.
And this may be true. Well, I still,
because I mean, at the same time Dreamcast was out and using, Windows CE or whatever, they were still, making the Xbox. Like, they didn't have any plans to, ride on Sega's back for sure.
And and that, so that's kind of what I was saying. Like, if they didn't have their own system, because that's kind of the point I was making. Like, even if they didn't have their own system, them spending 6 years with the Dreamcast, I think would have still led up to the 360, right? Whereas if the Dreamcast has never existed for Sega, I just feel like their whole future trajectory just would have been totally different than what we have today. But at the end of the day, I think the most important point here is that we both recognize that little duo of systems is both systems do what the other system does, right? So one of them should go.
I mean, one of them just does it, infinitely better. But
the Xbox is objectively better than the Dreamcast. That is for sure. But it's, we still would have got the 360. Well, so ladies and gentlemen, that's been our great debate. Let us know what you think. Well, actually, only let us know what you think if you think the Xbox should be erased, okay? Because I don't want to hear anything else. Just kidding. So, our next topic here. Speaking of a Dreamcast Slim, let's talk about this Switch redesign. So, we know that there's going to be a Switch redesign coming in 2019. And I don't think there's any official specs out just yet, but a lot of what I've been seeing has been people speculating about this new screen and, it's going to have this, it's going to have OLED and it's going to be some green. I don't agree with any of that at all. I have, for a long time, had this prediction that we're going to get another Switch that is smaller, right? Possibly more durable. And has no detachable Joy-Cons. And why do I think that? I think that because Nintendo still wants to keep its entire market, okay? We keep looking at the Switch's sales and talking about how great the Switch's sales are. But what we have to remember is that, since 1989, Nintendo has never only marketed one console, right? For that entire time, they've always had a console and then some portable system that they always had out. And so you kind of have to look at both of those numbers to really make a good sense as to where Nintendo is, right? So as of right now, the Switch is definitely doing well, but, it's only selling so much. I think that there's still a market out there for younger people, younger kids, people who want something that's a bit more portable to have another system. Which they've always done with whether it be the SNES or NES and the Game Boy or the GameCube and the Game Boy Advance. They've always had that duality there. So yes, I get it. And I know, and it's the truth. We all walk around with $1,000 computers in our pocket. Okay. It's 2018. We all know I have a Galaxy S, whatever have you. People have iPhones. We get it. Those are phones. Those are, these big purchases that we make, and they have mobile games on them, but they are not game systems. Okay. I do still think that there's a differentiation there. And I think that there's still a market out there for a smaller, more durable, more portable, and cheaper portable game system. So my speculation is that it will be at most $199. Okay. Cause you got to get that one in there somewhere. Can't be 200. It's got to be one something, and it'll definitely be more durable, and I think it'll open up that Switch market to smaller kids. And it's not to say that smaller kids can't play the Switch now, but is it if you have a 4-year-old, are you going to be as willing to buy him a Switch as you would be to buy him a DS? You know what I'm saying? Something with a clamshell, something that's supposed to be closed, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where I think Nintendo is going to focus their sights on this new Switch system. Also, I also feel that way because I can't really recall a time where Nintendo has taken their console and they made like a better version of it, right? They've redesigned it before, but never like made it better. And I know things are new with the Switch. We never know what they could do, but they've never done this whole PS2 Slim, with a slightly new processor or whatever. Like they've just never really done that before. So I just can't see them doing that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement on this. I don't think that it doesn't seem like Nintendo to come out with like a more powerful console. And I could definitely see like a Switch Mini or something like that, which of course would still be, given the name, I mean, it has to be able to still hook into your TV and play all the same games. So, I mean, it could still double as, I think that, I guess it would have some kind of dock and ports for controllers or whatever, if you can't detach the Joy-Cons. I mean, unless it has really, really tiny Joy-Cons or something like that. I don't know. I wouldn't see it as being portable only, because that would just seem to be that would seem to go against the entire name, of the console itself. So I guess that would be my only observation of it. I think that, like, definitely. I mean, it kind of would remind me of like when parents would, buy their kids like the iPod Touch or whatever instead of an actual smartphone, because it was like, it was kind of close and it looked like it, and they could show it to their friends and say, oh, look, but it's a little bit more limited in what it could do. So I guess that would be the only thing I would be shocked if it was a more powerful Switch. That would seem kind of ridiculous. And it doesn't seem like something Nintendo wants to be, I think, more accessible, not less so, and come out with some more expensive, upgrade or something like that. They don't, especially since Switch hasn't even been out that long. So it's like, you don't want everyone that went out and waited so long to get their hands on the Switch to then have to upgrade or something like that.
Well, I definitely agree with most of those points, but actually I kind of disagree with the first thing you said. I guess first of all, do you know the news about Super Mario Party?
No, I don't.
And like, you can't play it in handheld mode.
You can't play it in handheld mode?
No.
Okay.
So I don't think it'd be strange for Nintendo to make like a portable only system, because I do still think that they recognize that, some things are better flat out on console. I personally think that I guess you can play it in table mode. I guess you can. So I guess that kind of makes sense. Yeah, table mode works, right? Like when you detach the Joy-Cons, but you can't just like sit there with the Joy-Cons on it and play it. But I guess because it's like solely multiplayer. So, but either way, I think that there's still, a thing where, I think Nintendo does recognize that separation that's still there between those two markets. And I could easily see them doing a console that is portable only, especially just because, I'm not going to say I don't think it's going to add $100 to the production costs, but, the less you have on the system, the cheaper it'll be. Shoot, they took the 3DS and took the 3D out of it, with the 2DS. So I definitely wouldn't put it past them, especially if it'll get that price point down to like 150. Honestly, I think that's the factor. I think like if them not having it, would make it the same price, then they'll have it. But I think if they found out that portable only would only make it like 150, and they put some sort of, like wireless play to it. If anything, what I could see them doing is making that system itself usable as a controller for the Switch.
Okay. That might be a way around it. I just feel like it's called Switch, and the whole, the entire marketing scheme for the Switch was plug it in your TV, take it to go, and so to eliminate one of those things and then still call it the Switch would be, would just go against all of that.
Right. And no, I definitely do feel that. I guess it's just I do definitely, I agree with that completely. I just think that they'll probably take out anything they can to make it so that you can play these, dope games on the go and it be durable and cheaper, right? Because like you can drop a DS and not have too much of a problem. You know what I'm saying? And drop a 2DS or whatever. Honestly, even Game Boys, those were pretty good, with the screens they had. But you drop a Vita, or you press a Vita too hard or a PSP, you're done for. Same thing with smartphones. And I only say this because I remember my sister, she was, oh, I'm gonna get, my son a Switch, and I was like ready to buy my nephew some games for it, and then him and his younger brother were playing with mine. They just were like watching in horror, like we can't buy him this, like, one is 6 and the other one's 3. They're just like, no, like we can't do this, So I definitely understand that with parents, so I I don't know, definitely cheaper. But yeah, that's that. I don't think it has to be the OLEDs. Yeah, I think it's definitely gonna be cheaper.
No, they're not going to do an upgrade. The Switch screen is plenty fine as it is.
Exact. It's a Nintendo product.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's Nintendo level right now.
Right. I would think the only way that they might get a more like an upgraded screen would be if it was in fact a smaller screen, and so they went to some higher resolution thing or something. But I don't know. Even that would seem to add too much to the cost. So it has to be cheaper.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely just going to be cheaper because they have that whole market. And I'm not even going to lie to you. I would buy one because I actually don't really like bringing my Switch with me that much. I think that's kind of a personal thing. I've always been a fan of desktops over like good laptops for that very reason, because things like that I just don't like bringing with me. And yeah, like I was gonna, like, this past weekend I went on a trip. I didn't even bring my Switch with me because I just didn't want to deal with having it in my bag and having to like worry about if I left my bag somewhere. Like, 'cause I only had one bag. It's like if I could just have this little, game machine that doesn't mean that much, costs $150. Sign me up, but can still play Breath of the Wild.
Exactly. It has to be compatible with that stuff. And if it's not, then it's like you're basically just coming out with a new DS or something. Yes. So
most definitely. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, though we're looking at we may get another another console here, or like an updated console, but one thing I think we have too many of is games. So not 100% completely. I think there's some things that need to be said, but I'm personally myself have kind of noticed this sort of game saturation thing. I feel like that's going on. I mostly say that because it could just be because I'm becoming, an old, grandpa or something. But sometimes I just turn on my PlayStation and I just scroll through my menu and just look at all these things I can play and never actually play something. Right. And I find myself doing that more than I should. Maybe I should go to the doctor and get that checked out. But either way, I think that there's something to be said here about just game saturation. Now, I do think that it could possibly not necessarily be that there are too many games, but just the fact that the process of getting games is so easy now. You just download it. It's still so crazy to me sometimes to even think, like when a new game comes out, like I could just sit at home and have it, and I don't have to beg my mom to go to the store and get it for me and come home with this disc and put it in the system and take care of it. That's still a little strange to me at times. Not saying that it's bad. It's just, it's like, wow, I can't believe I can do that. But yeah, sometimes I just feel like there are too many things coming out. Another big part of it that I think is there is not necessarily that there are too many new games coming out, but sometimes I think that the saturation is kind of made more apparent with the fact that there are so many old games being re-released all the time. We always get these, and I go back and forth with, how I feel about HD classics and mini consoles. But, it's like, within the last, 2 years, how many times have we seen a release of Super Mario Brothers 1? Or within the last couple of years, how many times have we seen a release of Sonic 1? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, these things are always coming back out. And back in the day, we used to have Namco museums, but we would get those to be on a disc and get your Namco museum. You just kind of play those couple of games. And I'm not going to say that, you could have been Mr. Arcade Master back in, 82 or whatever, and, been the man at Miss Pac-Man and you put 1 million hours into it. But typically, that's not how you play those games. When it gets strange is when you have things like LA Noire coming back out in between, Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption. So it's like, in terms of scope and scale, that game is no different than a current gen game. Next year I'm excited to play Neo 2 and Sekiro, and Ghost of Tsushima, but we're also going to be getting a re-release of Onimusha, right? And don't get me wrong, I love Onimusha, right? But it's sometimes when I just think about that, it's like, wow, there's just so many of these. Every Resident Evil game has like already been released on the current gen systems, and now they're like making remakes of those. you know. So it's, sometimes I just think that there's just a lot of stuff out, and sometimes I just kind of find myself lost in the sea of things I want to play. And in the past, sometimes there would only be, one game a month or one game every 2 months that I would want to play. But where they're kind of killing me now is like they keep re-releasing the games that I wanted to play, right, or did play. So like every month there's like 5 games coming out that like I want to play, right, because 4 of them are classic games, of varying generations, some that I missed and some that I didn't. So while it's not to say that those games being re-released is necessarily bad. I think that's a kind of a separate topic, but yeah, sometimes I just feel like there's just a lot out here to play, and sometimes it may just be too much.
Well, there's only so many hours in the day, and of course, as we get older, we have less time to devote to this anyway. But I think that not only all of that is true, and I think the ease of access is definitely a big one as well. Because that was like you're saying, it was much more complicated back when we were children. If you wanted a new game, you had to convince your parents to go take you to the store and get it and all that stuff. So, it was your game library was going to be much smaller. And, I remember being impressed that I had like 15 Dreamcast games or whatever back in the day. And I was like, wow, that's so many games. But on PlayStation 4, I probably have like 25, 30 or something like that, at least.
Right, exactly.
And it's just so easy to get more.
They're probably free.
Yeah, might have some that aren't even out yet,
right.
But I own them. But yeah, they're free too. Yeah, that's another thing too. That's something we never have seen before, like the Steam sales and all that kind of stuff, or even PlayStation Store, Xbox. Like when they put these monthly sales on, and you get some, like Metal Gear Solid 5 for free.
Right, yeah.
Not too long ago.
I guess next one's supposed to be Yakuza Kiwami.
Yeah, these are like full size games. Games that are in the other thing that I was going to go to, of course, was like just the amount of content. That's something that always bothers me. Like every game that comes out is expected to have this like colossal amount of content, and you're just never going to get to the bottom of it. And like the fact that you were saying like Spider-Man was being criticized for only having like 30 hours of gameplay or something. This is absurd to me. Like 30 hours is more than enough for me. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like almost getting to be too much, like I'll get skeptical of a game if it's like, oh, you can beat it in like, 6 or 7 hours or something like that. But even then it's like, if it's really narrative driven, why not? Like, do I really need to like follow the 40-hour story with all? It's just, I don't know. We really don't need that much, especially with as many games as are accessible. How are you expected to play, The Witcher 3 on top of, getting Fortnite matches in on top of, God of War and Duty,
and Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, exactly. Assassin's Creed, I'm sure has, the completionist rate for that is probably, at least 100 hours or something like that if you want to get 100%, if not more. So, of course, not everyone's expected to get 100%. I think just the expectation now is either you're just only going to be playing this very small sect of games, or you're just going to be playing like the first, maybe 2-3 hours of everything and calling it good. And I feel bad about that because I was always someone who, I guess part of it was because of the method that we would get games back then. It was like you get one new game and you had to be set with that and you had to be happy with it. And you would get to explore that game in full for a long period of time. And that would be pretty much all you'd be playing. Whereas now it's like, of course, you can get anything you want. So your motivation to do that is just not as high. And so God of War, I loved God of War. I thought God of War was a great game. And I didn't even make it like halfway through that game. Probably didn't even make it a quarter of the way through that game. Horizon, the same way. Like I thought Horizon was a great game. Probably didn't even make it a quarter of the way through all that content and stuff. Didn't help that I was playing on hard mode in both of those games, but still, I thought they were excellent. And yeah, I think with re-releases, there's like this phony kind of, attachment that we feel to those where it's like, I gotta buy the re-release of this because I like it, and then you end up buying it and it's like, okay, but it's just taken away from the time you could have been spent in enjoying new stuff. And then, so, I mean, how many times are you going to do that? How many times are they going to re-release X, Y, and Z and you're going to buy it again? And, just because you like that, like it's the whole reason I bought Sega Genesis Classics. It's like, oh, it's Sega Genesis, but like, I can't even remember the last time I put that in my PS4 just because why would I be playing that when I could be playing something new? And
exactly.
The whole thing is just, I think it's just, there's too many different ways to play, too many different, and like you said, I mean, that it really blows my mind with the re-releases of like, Grand Theft Auto 5 and stuff, it's like such a huge game. It's like still $30. It's like such an old game at this point, but like, I mean,
that comes out. Yeah. And then, and I think even like just the idea of like, there's so many ways. I mean, you have like PlayStation Now, right? You have with the Xbox Game Pass, you just got all of these, just infinite libraries of games. It's like, because I go on the PlayStation Store sometimes and I just look at all that stuff and I'm just like, man, like so few of these games got like real releases, Sometimes you just go on there and there's just new stuff, it's just, and man, and it's and it's just going to keep getting more and more, I mean, they're about to, when the PlayStation Classic comes out, there's going to be like 20 PS1 games that are going to come out on that, right? And then, like, I mean, I'm still certain that at some point they're going to be putting a bunch of PS1 games on the PS4, and just doesn't stop.
Well, maybe we should just reevaluate our position on this because we would always be critical of like, the Hyper Evo dudes and stuff like, oh, all they play is Destiny or whatever. I mean, how else are they supposed to like, I think we come from a time where like, you can kind of reasonably expect to like fully explore a console. I mean, even up through the 6th generation, I feel like you could reasonably expect to be able to do that, but like you just can't now. And so maybe, people are really only expected to get into one or two different series and or types of games and just play those, till the end of time or the end of the console, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so because sometimes I feel like, man, like what if I just had a PS4 and I just only played Tekken?
You could.
Exactly.
They're going to keep coming out with new characters and DLC and everything. That's the other thing too. I mean, a lot of these games, like, not only they have a lot of content at launch, they don't stop. They just keep coming out. They want you to come back to it.
Right. Yeah, that's wild, man. Well, so despite the fact that there may be too many games out today, we want to take some time to look back at a simpler time in gaming when we were, younger and probably much better at games because sometimes I play this old stuff and I can't believe I used to play it. So here at Status Quo, we've both gone through a lot of things. I mean, especially me, I've, gone through collecting and all that stuff. And I just realized that the best thing we can offer you guys, the listeners, is just our expertise, our experience, all the times that we spent playing games and, the amount of knowledge that we've, accrued because of that. So we just wanted to kind of take some time to just share some general video game stories, and talk about our best times, what we think, maybe some things we miss, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess one thing that really comes to my mind is just the idea of renting, right? I know Queasy mentions that a lot. I definitely miss being able to rent games. What I don't miss, however, is having my parents rent games for me. I've had a lot of mishaps with that. I remember distinctly asking my dad to get a Sonic 3D Blast for the Saturn and telling him not to get it on the Genesis, and then he got it on the Genesis.
Of course,
right. Then we had to pull out the Genesis and hook it up. This is when it was away because we had the Saturn. It was absurd. I also remember when I got the Sega Saturn, we drove up, we got it. It was like around Christmas. And then I told my dad, I was like, Dad, take me to Blockbuster so I can rent a game. He's like, okay, we'll go to Blockbuster. I'll go in and rent it for you. Just stay in the car. So he goes in, he rents Bug, right? And then I get home only to find out that there is a demo disc with Bug on it, as well as a separate Bug demo disc, right? And in the box. So I had and at the time I could only like play the first level because the game was so hard. So like all three of those were like no different for me, So that was not a very fun 3 days or what have you. But yeah, I mean overall, renting games is definitely dope. That's just how I got to play so many games back then, because I wasn't going to GameStop and raping their system to get used games for cheap like I am now.
Well, I think that it could be another topic too. I mean, renting absolutely was important to me. I mean, most of the games I played were rented back then, but I think just parents in games is a great subtopic for this, because that was my parents used to play some games and back when I was a kid, and this is kind of like when I think about it now, like I can't imagine either of them playing anything, but they did. And my mom was pretty good at Bubsy. She used to like to play Bubsy on the Sega Genesis. She actually beat that game, which is, wow, I will say, is pretty impressive, because you can only get hit once, and then you die. And she got all the way to without cheats or anything. She beat that game. So she loves Bubsy to this day, that character and everything. So say what you will about Bubsy, but he's got one fan at least. And she also liked Columns a lot. Columns 3 specifically on the Sega Genesis. She used to play that quite a bit. She was completely averse to Mortal Kombat and anything of that nature. And luckily, though, she would frequently go out of town when I was a kid. And my dad would just say, "Oh, you want to rent Mortal Kombat? Go rent Mortal Kombat." And so while she was away, I'd be playing Mortal Kombat. So no wonder they ended up getting divorced. But Jesus Christ. Well, yeah, I mean, one parent's just undermining the other there. It's pretty bad.
Right.
Then my dad, he's a strange guy. He used to play a lot of stuff too. He used to play actually quite a few games. He played a lot of PC games. We had, I guess it must have been a somewhat decent PC back in the day. We had Journeyman Project, of course, classic point and click adventure game, as well as the sequel, Buried in Time. He was very good at those. And, I used to just kind of watch him play those because I wasn't really smart enough to solve the puzzles or anything at the time. Myst as well as included in that. King's Quest, we got that from my cousin who lives, about an hour or so away, or at the time he did. And I think it was King's Quest 6, I believe. And I remember playing that and trying to solve the puzzles, and it was impossible, of course. And Bug, we got to mention Bug again, because my dad played that quite a bit, as well as was Gex. Gex and X-Men games on the Sega Genesis. In both of those cases, he got very annoyed with friends of mine who came over to our house and, either wanted to play, and so he had to stop playing, and that was with Gex. He was like pretty far in the game, and this friend of mine was like, "Oh, I don't want to play," and he was like, clearly like visibly pissed off. And then and X-Men, of course, I told this story in one of my videos also, but we were playing X-Men 2 Clone Wars on Sega Genesis, and my friend and his brother came over, and we were, I was going to leave with them or something like that. And my friend's brother starts playing X-Men while, the parents were talking or whatever. And then they're like, "Okay, it's time to go." And it just cuts the Genesis off. Like, lost all of our progress,
Sheesh.
So he was not welcome in our household after that.
That's why I never follow rules. You never know when you don't need to do something.
Yeah, so parents and games.
Yeah.
It's a weird dynamic.
It's actually funny because I remember going over to your house, and I remember like you and your mom had this little like chalkboard that you wrote your like Columns games on, and you have like your score and stuff. Do you even remember that?
I don't even remember that. No.
Yeah, I remember like seeing like the board, and you guys had like wrote like, "Oh, I won with this one." I was like, "Wow, he actually plays games with his parents." Because my parents did not play any
They did not partake
The
ever.
only like, I mean, every now and then I would like, coerce them to like come watch me play something, but then they would just baby boomer it up, like, whoa, what is, and they would just, lose the mind. And this is
They
like
start babbling incoherently.
exactly, just like a baby boomer, It's technology. But I mean, the crazy part about it though, well, actually, I'll get to that one in a second. But one thing is that my dad, he was kind of big into like computers. He was big into computers the way, like 80s guys were like, hey, I just got a new machine here, let's check out the sound card. I always tell that because that's like his favorite part of computers, like the sound card. He's always like bringing that up, not the graphics card, not the hard drive.
It's got to have a good sound card.
Gotta have that good sound card, it's not a good machine. But he used to have like those like Lynx LS games on Windows, like big box.
Yes.
And they would be like sitting up on the shelf. And, I didn't even like really look at those as games. To me, they were like, old people stuff, but he would have those, and at the time, this was cutting edge. Oh, look at this. He doesn't even play golf, but every now and then we would get those, like 800 games for Windows.
Yes.
And then, your computer could only, your computer could play like 750 of them, but it would be like the 750 like garbage ones from like 10 years ago, at the time.
Breakout and Mahjong and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. And he loved Mahjong and backgammon. He basically all the video games he plays is stuff that he played in real life in the 60s. So, backgammon.
Backgammon.
Was that. My mom pretty much did nothing, but I did actually play Hyperstone Heist with my grandmother.
Dang.
And the only reason I remember that was Hyperstone Heist. I actually don't remember that it was that specifically, but it was like a Ninja Turtles beat 'em up, and we had a Genesis, so it had to be Hyperstone Heist. And I was renting it, and it was funny because she was like my older. She like of my two grandmothers, she was older, and she would come visit every so often, and she would just like sit back there and like play the game with me. And it was just funny because she was obviously born, she was born in the 20s, but she still, tried to play. Whereas like my parents born in the 50s, like their heads would blow up,
Mm-hmm.
So I did do that. My mom was, very, I don't know. She, I don't want to throw my parents on the bus too much. They love to do this thing where like,
why not? I did.
Yeah, that's true. like my parents love to be parents when people are watching, So I've probably told this story before, but like I remember when I went to GameStop, it was right when I got my PS2. It was a couple days later, so I had an NES and a PS1 I was going to go trade in, right? And I don't know why my mom decided to come in, but she came in along with me and my dad, who usually came in. You gotta have an ID to trade. So we're in the store, and I'm trading in the PS1 and the NES, and I'm talking with one employee and my dad about getting Final Fantasy X. That's what I came for, right? It's still Christmas break, so I hadn't gotten back to school and find out what everybody else was playing. All I wanted was Final Fantasy X, right? So it's like, oh, I got enough money for this, and I'll get the guide and blah blah blah, and I'm talking. Looking back, it was a ridiculous trade because it was like a PS1, probably some games, a NES, and like 12 games. And I remember I only got enough to buy the game, which is like absurd now because NES with some games, you can buy a Benz. But the other guy and my mom were over there talking, right? And I'm like 12, and and the guy's like, you can pick up a hooker and shoot her and take the money. And like my mom was, oh my God, oh Lord, she just straight up not having it. I didn't even know what they were talking about. So as we're leaving the store, she's like, you ain't gonna be getting that Grand Theft Auto. You ain't gonna, and at this time I was only familiar with like, the top down ones. So I'm like, nobody plays that trash. I go back to school and like GTA is the shit, obviously, right? Like, you play Grand Theft Auto 3, they got rap songs on it, and you can kill people with baseball bats. And I was like, damn, like, like I must play this. So it was just crazy because, of course, she just, at that point she had heard about the hooker in the car specifically, so she was not gonna let me get Grand Theft Auto 3. So I found my ways around it, but yeah, she was very adverse to all things like that. My dad, he's, oh, you want to buy Mortal Kombat 3? Oh yeah, go ahead, but so
It's funny the way you had to like justify these purchases to your parents.
Exactly.
Even like, oh yeah,
yeah.
Let me buy that Ludacris album. I just like the beats,
Right? Yeah, I know it got cussing in it, but
I don't listen to that.
I mean, yeah, just that. I probably told this one before too. Just to talk about how hard it was to get games. I remember trying to get Tekken 3, and I had finally coerced my dad into getting it for me, and he was like, "If I buy you this game, I'm not buying you nothing else for the rest of the month." And at that time, I just thought like, wow, like if he doesn't buy me anything else for the rest of the month, I'll probably die. Not realizing like I'm just a dumbass kid who doesn't need anything because there's food and electricity at my house.
Mm-hmm.
So. Of course, I was like, all right, Dad, I won't get it. And of course, he still didn't buy me anything else for the rest of the month anyway. So I got played. Definitely got played with Tekken 3.
Oh, damn. Well, eventually you got it, though.
I did.
Eventually thanks to Queasy Crayfish. That's right.
Thank God.
Damn. I can't even follow any of that stuff. I mean... The only other one I wanted to talk about was like early online PC gaming, because I used to play Command and Conquer a lot, and we had a 56K connection and everything.
That was big time. We had
big time. And so my friend would come over and we were both into Command and Conquer and stuff, and we would blow it up and play Command and Conquer. I think it was Red Alert 2 Yuri's Revenge online.
Damn.
I have like a video of this somewhere, because one thing I used to do back then is I had a video camera. Is like if my friends came over, I would just videotape everything they did basically, because I was like, oh, and I could watch it later and feel like I had friends, So
look, I do have friends.
I had a couple friends, but we were playing online, which was like crazy. This was probably in like, God, I don't even know, like 2002 or 1 or something, maybe. I don't know when Yuri's Revenge came out, but it was like long time ago. And the big thing that we wanted to do was, because there was Yuri, if you played as the Yuri side, because there was the Soviets and the Allies, like normal Red Alert 2, but then there was also a Yuri side that they added because this was the expansion pack, So like you could play as Yuri, and he had one unit that could like brainwash any other unit on the screen. And so we were like, what if we, we went into like a team battle, and then we build up trust in our teammate, and then we'd send this guy over and take over all their buildings and sell them all, and like being complete assholes. But, as a kid, we just thought it was hilarious. So we did that just like over and over again in this lobby, and just like, it was just hilarious to us. It was just unendingly hilarious. And of course, now I'm ashamed of myself of doing that, but
yeah, that sounds like a ban to me.
Yeah, it should have been banned, but it was good times. Early online, before anyone was even aware of such shenanigans as that.
Right. I don't really even have any good a lot of stories about chat rooms. A lot of the good stories about online games. Because really honestly up until the ending, like the end of the PS2, like when I got a PS2 Slim was when I first really played consoles online, because I didn't do Dreamcast. I did play a lot of emulators online though. With Chimera, like Final Burn. I just remember it being very slow and nobody wanted to play with me because my ping was ridiculous.
Super red.
Yeah. Don't play with this guy.
28.8.
That was absurd.
Should we have a special shout out to the Hoover boots?
The Hoover boots.
The Hoover boots and the Ocarina of Time strategy guide and all all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely add a little shout out to that.
What was that strategy guide that you like ripped the page out of?
So we had this friend, if that's what you want to call it.
We'll call him Richard.
Yeah, Richard Lieberman.
Okay.
So he had this guide to Pokemon, right? Pokemon Red and Blue. He had like a guide, And I didn't even have the game at the time, but I brought it from him because at that time, anything Pokemon was a hot commodity, no matter what it was. So we were at my house, and me and my cousin were playing like Pokemon, not like the actual game. We were like, how when you're a kid, you like play stuff. You're like, let's play swords, So like we were playing Pokemon. So we had like, we had the little figures, and we were like battling them. And, I watched the show, I knew it. So I knew like a lot of moves and stuff. So I'd be like, Pidgey, use Gust. He didn't really know any moves, right? He's like punch, he didn't know like the names. So I was like, and this is because you came out, we didn't really, we had the internet, but I just really didn't think about things the way I thought about them now, And even back then, I don't know if you could have just went somewhere and found a list of all the moves. Like you probably could have, but like it just wasn't like it was today, So I was like, well, the only thing I have here with a lot of moves in it is this strategy guide here that I borrowed from my friend for literally no reason because I don't even have the game. So why don't we both use it? But then I think when I looked in the guide, I realized there were a lot of moves that even I didn't know. So I was like, well, I want to use it and you want to use it. How do we remedy this? Oh, I'll tear a page out and tape it back in later, and he just won't notice, So I tore a whole page out, let him use it for the moves and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, I retaped it back. I think if I had just aligned it better, of course, he would have never noticed, right? But I didn't align the...
he probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, he wasn't the smartest dude. But, I didn't align the taping back. So he got the strategy guy back with an entire page ripped out. And, his grandma called and, was like... I'm going to talk to his father, and call my dad, and it just turned into a whole, Lupe fiasco. And it wasn't fun. Definitely got punished for that because he had this big thing about me borrowing things anyway. Like, don't borrow shit. Your friend wants you to borrow something, don't borrow it. Because you rip pages out of things and then you have to pay for it. And it was just funny because like looking back on it, I could definitely tell how interested my dad was in the principle of things. Cause this wasn't $100 book, literally it was just, between the adults, it's probably his grandma just like, hey, your son messed this thing up. I need $20. My dad was probably like, oh yeah, here's $20, but like just the principle of it, just, he just wasn't having it.
Yeah. Well, I borrowed a strategy guide from Richard as well. And it was the Ocarina of Time strategy guide. And, I don't know if he even had that game, quite honestly. Well, no, he must have because he was aware of but like I don't remember ever like really getting in any in-depth conversation about the game with him, other than this one time when he asked me if I had got my dang Hoover boots yet, which was he was referring to the hover boots in the Shadow Temple in Ocarina of Time when you obtain the hover boots.
I mean the Hoover boots.
The Hoover boots. He called them the Hoover boots. And that's forever a meme between Mars Vindicator and myself because that's just hilarious.
He had this. He was the type of person who said "dang," not like dang, but like he said "dang," and then he stuttered. He was like, "Did you get them dang Hoover boots?" It's hilarious. And we're 9. So obviously that's like the funniest thing out. We're not watching Martin Lawrence stand ups. So. That was the funniest thing going on at the time was them dang Hoover boots.
Dang Hoover boots.
Well, yeah, that's just.
I did get those dang Hoover boots eventually, though.
I never got the dang Hoover boots. I didn't make it that far in Ock. I did not get those. But yeah, that's just a tip of the iceberg. I mean, yeah, we've when you've been playing games for ever, definitely have a lot of stories. So tune in again. We'll tell you some more of our wonderful stories, maybe about our great Metal Gear Solid sleepovers.
Yeah.
Save that for next time. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Mars Vindicator, Status Quo, and also
QueasyCrayfish.com.
.net, .co, .jp, international.
.org. .gov. .edu.
AOL keyword Queasy. There we go. So we'll get at you guys next time. We're out of here.
Bye.